We're going to start recording. And we're recording. We're live. Good morning. Welcome to the Zoom In Between Wall and Main. This morning we're zooming in with Ian Vacin from Karbon. Ian, say hello. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing great. It's great to meet with you guys and hang out.
Excellent. It's been a really long time since we spoke.
It's been about, what, 12 hours?
Yeah, I think so. So, who's got the police looking for them?
Oh, that's me.
You better hide. Come on, Sushi. We know about that shady business you're into.
You caught me.
It's either police or a leaf blower. They always show up.
Brooklyn, man, you know.
That's Brooklyn in the house. That's right. Sushi lives in the rough streets of Brooklyn. So, all right, let's go through the random questions. Some of you registered late, so your questions won't get in. You got to register early for your questions to get in. Dennis wanted to know how much I weigh, and I answered it before we went live, but I'll answer it for everyone. So I've gone from 272.8 to 264.2. I've lost almost 10 pounds in about a month.
Nice.
My hometown is a little town on Long Island called Comac, New York. My favorite movie, I feel like I got asked this already, but I'll answer it again. If I have to pick something, it's going to be Lost Boys. I think that's because I'm going all-time favorite here, and I think the Lost Boys is got to be it. It's either that or it's like Pink Floyd, The Wall, or maybe it's A Clockwork Orange. It's a toss-up. What's the monthly pricing for Karbon per user? We'll get to that later. We'll let Ian cover that one later. Do I ever sleep? The answer is I sleep more than you think. I'll tell you what my secret is. A lot of the social stuff is automated, so it seems like I'm awake all hours of the night posting stuff, but I'm really not. And my real secret is I'm actually in bed most nights by around 8:30 p.m., and then I get up at about 4 or 5 in the morning. That's the secret to my success. And then the other thing is, because some people ask me along the same vein, how do I get so much stuff done? The answer is I do it, and I know Ian's going to talk about this. We talked about it last night a little bit. There are periods during the day that outweigh the others where my email is off. I'm not getting my emails. My phone is not even ever on vibrate. It's on silent. I don't want to see them. I don't want to hear them. I don't want to know about the notifications until I'm ready to go in and proactively follow up on the stuff. In other words, I control that stuff. I don't let it control me and distract me from what I'm trying to get done. So that's how I stay productive, is I don't let those distractions. I had a client email me last week at one point saying, hey, can you get on with me real quick on something? And a few hours later was when I got the email, and I wrote back to him. I said, I'm really sorry, I had my email off. And his reply to me was, smart man. You know, people respect it when you do that kind of stuff. Okay, have you changed your mind about Karbon? I don't know if that's a question for me or Ian. I hope Ian has not changed his mind.
A bit committed.
And then Kathy Kovacs, who's there with us, looking good, looking well, Kathy. Love the dog. Every week she asks the same question, which is, what? I think she wants to know why she's being asked to ask a question and why. And a few people want to know why it's required, and the answer is because the answers I've been getting have been a lot of fun. So I make you ask me a question or at least think about it. And hang on, I'm going to let a few more people in. We're almost there. We're almost ready for the main event. What should I do to get a potential new client that thinks he only needs me to help him set up his QuickBooks, but I know he need, I guess I
got cut off.
You got cut off. No. So my honest answer to that question is just help him set up QuickBooks, start doing the review, go through his balance sheet with him or what his balance sheet should look like. And what I've found is when I go through that process with a client or prospect, they start to see the value, and I don't even have to ask them. They end up asking me, how can I get you to do more for me? That's usually when I start going through their balance sheet. That's always been the experience. They start seeing.
You told me that before, also. So
yeah,
maybe I should start listening to you.
Yep. So then Larry asks, what is Karbon used for? As I understand it, Karbon is used in Geiger counters to date fossils and things.
Yes. We also use it at the beach to find metal objects.
There we go. And then Kyla asked, how old are my dogs? So I have 3 dogs. They're all rescued. 2 of them are mother and son. So we have Xena, who is about 17. Ralphie, who is her son, who's the guy you see in most of the pictures with me, he is only a year behind her, roughly. She was way too young to have had puppies when she did, but clearly she wasn't being cared for. And then more evidence of that was the fact that somebody just left them at the rescue place, which fortunately for us we were able to get them and take them home. And then we have Hercules, who was adopted about 4 years later. So he's like 11 or 12-ish. So they're getting up there in age, and I'm not looking forward to the day that we have to say goodbye. I'm going to be off the air for like probably 6 months when that happens. Anyway, that is it for the questions. If you want your questions asked live on the air, then you have to get them in early. Those of you who registered at the last minute, I won't see them until I get the attendee report. You don't make it into the registration report once I've started the webinar. So with all that said, and a couple of the questions, Ian, were actually for you. Let's talk about Karbon. Tell us where you're at.
Yeah, so how much time do I have? Because I could go all day.
6 hours. We're going to go till like 10 o'clock tonight.
Is it a filibuster and we're in the Senate where nothing gets done right now? Or,
Well, that's what we're probably looking at in the next term anyway. You know what? One last quick fun thing, because I just thought this was great. I'm going to share my screen real quick. I love this little meme. Where did you go? There it is. I am voting for this ticket. Can you guys see it?
Oh, no, that's good.
Okay, because if you're going to elect batshit crazy, let's at least make it highly entertaining. That was my favorite meme of the week. And I love Christopher Walken and Gary Busey.
Well, you know, Donald Trump still has to pick a running mate. So
maybe it would be one of those.
Oh, wow. Wow, Blake comes out swinging early in the morning.
I have no filter right now. It's too early. This is bad. I'm going to mute myself again.
That's perfect.
The logic I got like 2 elections ago was you want to actually, this was actually from Penn and Teller, you want to actually, put the dumbest person in office because there's the least chance of them doing anything. So just status quo for 4 years.
We'll see how that works out.
In that case, we need what's her name, who was going for VP a couple of terms back. Who was that? Sarah Palin.
Palin, no, it's Palin. Come on, Seth. We don't call people out.
Sorry.
You got to behave.
I can't.
Maybe it's better they don't do anything. Every time they try something, they screw it up.
Exactly.
That's funny. All right, so how's Karbon going to help us elect a decent president?
It can just give you visibility on where it's headed. That's about all it can do.
Perfect.
It'll coalesce all the emails that your friends are having about the current candidate in motion. Let's put it that way.
Gotcha.
At least then you know what to do, which is to get a bunker. Always do ammunition sales go up every year for election.
Aye.
So whatever that is for the society, I don't know.
That's a scary thought, actually.
It actually is true. So it's pretty. So let me do this. Do you want me to? You guys want to get into the product? You guys,
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, let's dive in. Let's not mess around.
All right, so here's what we're going to do. So I'll give a little bit of a primer. Let's see, I got to, it's funny, when I show my screen, it does not do anything for you guys. Let me show my screen. So here we go. Can you guys see my screen?
We sure can.
We sure
There's
can.
Karbon behind it, but I'm gonna leave it behind you. So for you guys that don't know us, there's a nice little pretty graphic. We got past that. I know most of you guys, but I'm co-founder and VP of Product Marketing. I've worked industry a little bit. I spent 4 years at Xero and 10 years in Intuit and other places in my 25 plus years career. What Karbon is solving for, just so you guys know, and I'll show it in action, is so unless you're Seth, who doesn't use his phone, as we've just learned, and turns off his email, email is pretty overwhelming, and there are great solutions out there that help. Slack is a good one. I know a bunch of you guys are using Slack, so it's good for team collaboration and water cooler talk. Your inbox, and I see this time and time again, becomes your to-do list, which is a really scary thought, but don't email yourself again off of an email to do a to-do because you've just doubled your email. The other one that we're looking at and that Karbon solves is it's really hard to see what your teammates are doing, most likely because it's sitting in their inbox, and your inbox has one view of the world, their inbox has another. And so getting visibility across all the work that's in motion is really, really hard. And then lastly, that data, the data that you have is scattered across many different systems. A lot of you guys are all cloud accountants, for lack of better words, and so you're using probably 5-6 solutions just to run your own firm, but then you've got probably 3 to 6 solutions each client's using. So you have this pretty good myriad of solutions. And then to have the relationship and knowing what has transpired, with any particular client or contact that you have or project is really, really tough. And so how does that all come together? This is our old tagline. So Seth, you've seen this tagline before, which is collaborate with your team and look after your clients.
Uh-huh.
We've been asked to simplify it. That's as narrow as I can give it, which is it's task management for accountants. That is the narrowest. You're going to see there's a lot more to that when we go through the product. But that leads us right to the demo. Sound good?
Sounds great.
So here's what we're going to go through today in a tour of what Karbon is. And you guys are actually going to see our staging environment. It's not even a demo system. So staging environments in the engineering world means that something is going to go disastrously wrong. And it'll be lots of fun for you guys. And you'll see me sweat bullets because literally I'm on Zoom and you can see me sweat bullets. So we're going to go through today triage. And so what triage is we connect to Gmail or Office 365. We bring in all of your email as it comes and goes. It does not replace your email. Your email runs side by side. If you want to use your phone for your Gmail, go ahead, keep using it. Whatever you do in your email account is reflected in Karbon. Whatever you do in Karbon will be reflected in your email account. We're going to look at collaboration. So it's all about getting work together and ultimately creating it and then working across it. And you and your teammates can do that. All the information is brought into what we call timelines that bring you all the relationships and history of information in one chronological order. It is contact management. We try to integrate with other solutions. We couldn't get to work because a lot of you may be doing tax work. So you got a tax client who's also a small business owner who also might be a nonprofit, and each one of those has to be represented as a client and contact of yours. And then it's all about getting work done, and that's where we do it with checklists and to-dos and everything searchable. So there you go. That is what we're going to talk about today with Karbon. Any questions before I start?
Nope.
Nope.
And I'm going to move you guys. You guys are on my other screen, so you guys have just been relegated to other screens. So sorry about that. I'll go. Yes, sorry. Yeah, you hit the wall of the other screen. Sorry. I'll go back through a little bit of the history of Karbon and the details. I know you guys really want to see it. So
Yeah, actually, I do have a question. I'm sorry. Why the name change? Why? I'm just curious. Why do we go from, what was it, Practice IQ to Karbon?
Well, actually, the history is we went from Balanced Labs to Practice IQ to Karbon. Balanced Labs is when we first put it together in our exploratory phase. Practice IQ, the problem with the name was there was multiple pieces. One, it's too specific. So when you go Practice IQ, it really narrows what you can do long term. Secondly, we were getting confused with Practice Ignition. Thirdly, which was something we knew about, there's an old product by MYOB that actually is called Practice IQ with the words separated. And they were getting a little bit bent out of shape about it. And then fourthly, we want to do something that was a little bit more ambiguous and had a lot more depth and meaning. So that's why we chose Karbon. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And it's easier to change your name when you're young and in the duration of the firm than when you're older. So it makes it a lot easier for us to change everything around. But I think it actually does this better, and it's just a better representation of who we are.
And why Karbon? Where'd the name actually come from?
It comes from, underlying, it's the fiber it's got really, really strong. It can also be flexible by nature, in terms of what its attributes and strengths are, represent who the company is overall. So it really, if you go and look at Karbon itself, it's got about 6 different meanings, and you look at the different meanings of each one of those, you'll start to see it in the product about how we're able to give you the rigidity you need in order to stay on top of everything, but the flexibility to make it work for how you do business every day. And so there's a couple of things around that ultimately allow us to stand out and be different.
Gotcha. Okay.
The designers have a nice 3-paragraph explanation of it. I haven't really memorized that yet, but I'll come back to you with that, Seth. It's a good point of question. I wasn't as closely involved in that. There's about 5 million things going on, so they went off on their own.
Well, these are the things I wonder about late at night.
You should be sleeping because you go to bed at 8:30.
I wonder about them in my sleep.
Oh, there you go. Okay, so what we talked about here, guys, is this is the navigation. It's up here in the top left. Triage, this is all about your email. This is all about work and to-dos, and then contacts, and we'll go through some settings. What's happening here for everybody is I have connected my Karbon practice to my email account. This is my Gmail. This is a fictitious Gmail account. And this is every communication that has transpired inside of Karbon over the last time I've looked at it, which is a culmination of emails internal communications, and any work or to-dos that are assigned. Does that make sense?
100%.
So what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be going ahead and processing just like I would go through my inbox. I'm going to get to a fully read inbox. And so if I clicked on this one, for example, this is an email that's come in. The subject line here was director appointment. It came from a contact named Abigail. So I can see that she's in the system because she's already got a view contact. And then it's the body of the email and any attachments come in. What Karbon does is it strips out everything you don't need to see, so you only see the content of what is being discussed. And that makes it so you're quicker to go through your email and process what it is. Anywhere in Karbon you see 3 dots, it shows you everything you can do here. And so again, just like you could in email, you could reply. There's assignments of this. So this is so I can assign an email to my colleague or to myself to create a to-do. I can add this to work that we have in motion. I can add to a contact the actual conversation that's in motion. And if I need to, I can forward. Those things are also represented across here.
Once I've read something here, will that ping my email client and so it'll be marked read in the email client as well?
Yep. So what happens here is if I open this up and look at it, it's going to mark it as read in my inbox. If I go ahead and clear this, which is this button I'll show you, it'll move it to my archive folder in my email account as well.
Nice.
And so the actions here are going to reflect. If I also reply to this email, it will go through my email account sent folder and be tracked there as well. So that's
what
why,
about
again,
labels?
Labels? No, because it's going to go to the generic archive.
Okay.
So it does not have that capability at this point. We are looking to add tagging and labels inside of Karbon, and once we do that, we could also impact the email account.
Gotcha.
Good question. You're gonna throw me curveballs all day. This is great, right?
This is what I do. I'm going to go all Will McAvoy on you.
What I'm glad is that Blake is currently on mute because he would sideline this whole show. So, just so you can see here, when you go in here, you can just write an email. If you need to do BCC again, it says like, "Hi Seth, this is the wrong email to the wrong person." And when I click send here, again, I can attach whoever I want. This is now going to send it. You can see the thread continues, and now that's going to be associated to Abigail. Now, the interesting thing here is Abigail has sent me an email. However, it's all about creating and managing work. And so I just want to see real quick what we're doing with Abigail. I can see that we're doing a tax return. We're doing this college fund. We're not doing this director appointment. So this is scope creep. So I don't like scope creep. So I want to create new work for that. And on the fly, we're going to start that today. We're going to end it by the end of the month. I can write some notes. I can assign it to my colleagues. Since they always sign me stuff, I'll assign it to them. What I've now done is in the moment of an email, I've now created the project work. I've now funneled every communication that's going to transpire across this into one location. And I'm now able to follow what's going on here over time. Does that make sense?
And that's based on the subject. That's what's going to tie the thread together and make it get assigned to that new work that you created.
And that's exactly right. And so that subject and that contact and the client organization are what's driving all of that behavior.
Nice.
Date required?
Date is not required. It can be left blank if you want. I was doing that just to show how the date pickers work. Yeah, and if you needed to, you could just go back into this. So this is actually what work looks like. And I could go ahead and edit any of these particular things. So I could edit the end date here. Go ahead, or if I wanted to actually edit the start date, I could go ahead and edit the start date by moving back to plan. And again, you get nice little pickers and whatnot, and you can have all sorts of good fun.
And does it work only with Gmail or Google Apps, or does it work with Outlook too? Or what email clients does Karbon work with?
We work with Office 365 and with Gmail today. We are working to actually expand also to Outlook, Microsoft Outlook itself. Most of the time, though, we find Microsoft or Office 365 is sitting underneath most people's Outlooks because they're using a desktop version connected to a cloud backend. So this right here was that email you could saw before. I'm going to go ahead and clear it. And then again, this is the process going through. When I press the clear button, what's now happened is I've now archived it in my email account. And so now if I panic and I go, oh my God, I want that back, if you just go back up here to cleared items, you can see that it sits right here. And I can bring it back. And if I bring it back, it'll be sitting back in my triage, and it'll be sitting back in my email client. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So bad things don't happen. So that's what happens with email. So you would go through and you'd process your email. This is what happens when there's an internal dialogue happening on anything within Karbon. Again, it's associating itself to whatever project that note was created with the contact. And then my coworker, Pax, has flagged me in this communication telling me that I need to know something about this college fund project. And if I go back here, I can quickly flag Pax if I want in the moment and say, sounds good, I have it from here. And what will happen at this point is when I click add here, what it's going to do is it's going to add the note, and it's going to inform Pax, and in his triage, he's going to get a note as well. Again, I could just write a note and say, I need to look at this. Some issues exist, and this will be in the record for that particular client and project. Make sense? And then I could clear that out. And the last thing we're going to look at here before we go into the meat of the project is this is what happens when someone assigns me something. You can see a nice little briefcase here. When I get a to do, or when I get work, and this allows me to see what projects are coming in through my queue. Again, I could forward this to somebody else, or again, I can go ahead and just clear it. Does that all make sense, everybody?
So, but when you clear it, it archives it. What if you want to go back to it and say, wait a minute, I forgot what I needed to do. That email had a to-do item in there for me. Or how do you deal with a to-do item?
Yep, so I'll show you. So one thing is if I cleared it, I can always go back like that, right? But here's how that typically would work. Let's take a look at this email, or let's look at this. We can look at any of these particular things. Let's look at an email. This person here, Fred, has created this particular thing. And I go, okay, we're going to create a new project for Fred. So let's see if we've got anything in motion for Fred. We'll put this bank reconciliations project. So I've associated it. Now, what I can do here is I go, oh my goodness, you know, I got to do some follow-up work with Fred. So I'm going to go ahead and assign this particular project to myself. I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to need to get back to this because I got to do some research on it. And I'm going to say, well, let's create this for today, this week. I need to look at it. And now what I've done is in my to-dos, I've taken this email and I've already created to-do on the fly. And we're going to see that in a little bit. And so all this is going to transfer over to there, and we'll come back to it after I've processed everything, so I can prioritize my work day and then look at what work needs to be done for this particular day or week. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and then I assume, and you might get to this later, so if I'm getting ahead, just let me know, but I assume there's a way at some point where I can, like one of the reasons I love forwarding my emails to Evernote is once it's in Evernote, I can make notes right there in the email about what I'm doing or what I did, or if I call the guy back and we discuss something, yep. It becomes like my CRM.
Wait for it, Seth.
All right.
It is. So for a lot of you, this is going to feel a little bit awkward with triage, and you're going to see why it all makes sense as we go through the product. But this is your way of channeling every communication into your workflow, because you're now not keeping your inbox separated from your task management system or your project management system or your CRM. Make sense?
Yep.
So now I'm going to go into work. This is the view of all the work that's going on in the firm, whether I've got stuff that's in waiting or in progress, planned, or completed. Now I can look at this for all the work that's assigned to me. I can look at all the work that's across the firm. Again, this is a demo system, so it's a little bit lighter. I can also look at my colleagues specifically. Now, what I'm more concerned about is what work is currently in progress. So these are the different projects that are in process, and I can see them again by myself or by my colleague. I can also group them by whether or not the different clients that we have. I could also look at it by who in the firm is working on what. And so this is how you're able to get the visibility of what's currently in motion. Now, what the key of this is to look at anything in particular detail. So when I go through here, I was assigned this project, if you remember from the top, Marinda Silver's College Fund. I also had that bank rec that we talked about a second ago. So let's go in the bank rec, since Seth, you drove me down that line. In the bank rec here, this is what a piece of work looks like. We've got the name of the project, we've got who it's for, the status of it, who owns it. There can only be one owner, the start and the end date if the end date was selected. Let's give this an end date. Now this is where the timelines come in. This is a working list of every communication, both internally and externally, that's ever gone on for this project and this contact in one go. And this is the way for you to quickly be able to dive back into what we've been doing in triage and collectively as a team. So this, again, you can see here, Seth, this was that communication. Mm-hmm. I can now see in chronological order what has been transpiring, so I can quickly up to speed. Make sense?
And are Fred's tax files ready? I'm just curious.
Well, no, Fred's taxes are not ready. So waiting for his last year docs.
So here's how you make the notes. Perfect.
Yep, and so I would do this here. Now I could say waiting for the docs, and I could add this here. The next thing I would do in that case is I would change this project to be waiting, because we're waiting now for him to provide that. And then I would go back here and say, Pax, who my coworker is, you need to get the docs. Docs from Fred. And now what I've done is I've passed off the ownership of this to Pax in order to get his thing done. We're going to look at checklists in a second. But this might be a point where I create a checklist on the fly.
Wait, how did you pass off the ownership? Just by virtue of the fact that you mentioned him in the most recent correspondence, or?
Not ownership. Still own the project, but what I've done here is I've created a task for him.
I see.
Or it's essentially a flag in his communications, of which he will create it, most likely a to-do from that to
For
do
himself.
something.
Got it. Okay.
Is Fred
However, what
Smith the client or
Fred
the
Smith-
email name?
So Fred Smith is the actual name of the client. In this case, an individual tax client.
Okay.
And well, I'll show you. It's a good question. And guys, I'm going to float back and forth. That's one of the great things at Karbon. So if I go into contacts, here's some of the intro screens here. You don't need to see that. Got it. Whoops.
Maybe
This
I
is
can't
where
remember who Fred is.
Yep. So this is, again, all the contacts in the system that we currently have today. So in the people, you can see here are the people that we work with: Abigail, Brownwin, Fred, Frederick. And then these are the organizations that we're supporting as in our company, which is Adam Smith Consulting. And then I've got a few of my colleagues, which are Anthony, Pax, and myself. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to go back. And again, the great thing about Karbon is you just can press the back button and you'll get to where you were before. It remembers the full track. So don't have to do anything crazy there. And so stuff that needs to happen. So I can quickly go into here. I could say get his tax forms. I could then say process taxes, pay government. What I've now done is I've quickly created a checklist on the fly here. I could then say that this is all now assigned to me because I own the project. However, this one, if I go into this one, is now no longer assigned to me, but assigned to Pax, which is what we just talked about. The due date is the end of this week. It's currently in process. I could write some details. Go to, I don't know, irs.gov. So this is how you can create quick work on the fly.
Need another
And
W.
then, what's up?
Need another W.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that.
But would it create a link? That was what I was trying to see if it.
Yeah, it will. It will create a link. That's the. So if I go back into this, and if I was to edit this, oops. Wait for it. There's
Yeah,
the link.
change colors. Okay, good.
Yep. And so what you can do here is, again, you can then
It's a
move
tough
these
crowd
things.
here, Ian.
I know. You can move these things around. You can nest them. Again, you can quickly create a checklist however you want. If you process these things, it starts to reflect it across here. It also is going to create a to-do for those people who are associated on these checklists. So again, this is how, again, using the example you had, Seth, this is how I'm able to take and be able to see the history in the context of a project and be able to get things moving on the fly.
I love that. Now, again, I might be getting ahead of myself here, but what if I want to get like a high-level dashboard? Here's everything I need to do across all projects today.
We're going to get to that.
Okay. I'll shut up then.
Hey,
No.
Ian, one last question on the checklist.
Yeah.
Can you save it as a template that you could, like if you have the same activities every month that you do for a project?
Yep. So what happens on checklists is, and again, I wasn't going to go on a checklist till the end, so I'll go through it here. On each checklist here, there's a couple of different things you can do. You can obviously rename it. You saw me assign everything to one person, but here's where I could copy this to work. So I could copy this into whatever project that's in motion. I can take a look, and this checklist will move itself, place itself in another project, and then whatever the dates, chronological ordering, how I did that off of the start date, will replicate automatically with wherever the given project is I've moved it to. So a lot of folks, what they'll do here is they'll go in here and they'll create a new piece of work, and they'll say, my company here is, let's say I'm Acme Bread. That's the name of my company, and I'm going to create an internal area, and then we'll then create a new client. Let's say it's Acme Bread. So create a new client here. This is a new organization, www.acme.com. You actually don't have to write anything there.
How very European of you, the way you spelled organization.
Yeah, I'm using the Australian demo version versus the actual US one. So
It's just not even European, it's Australian. But I like
it's
it.
Australian. So what I've done now, as you've seen, I've created this Acme Bread internal. And so what a lot of folks will do here is they'll then take their checklist once they've created them. They'll then move this over to here. And now what I've got is, in Acme Bread, I'm going to have a template locker of all the different checklists that I have in motion. So what happens when we create a checklist in Karbon is the checklist is unique to whatever organization or whatever project it's assigned to. And so if I go ahead and muck around with this one, it will not impact the one that you just saw within Fred's contact record. So that allows you to take any set of processes that you have and have a template that's global for the firm, but then be able to personalize it for each individual client and not being stuck to a template that forces you to have to work within when it won't support the client that you have. Does that make sense?
Yep, perfect.
And so this is one way that people are, we use a sort of a templated area in order to get what that's being done. Other people will just be able to take whatever the last project was that was the best representation and then create it. But what happens here is this checklist is going to mirror whatever the start date is. So if I've got this thing happening in 1 day, this in 5, and this in 10, it'll then handle that set of dates. Make sense? The other thing here is we'll go a little later is I can take any project and I can make it repeating.
Somebody was just going to ask, Kathy asked in the chat just now, what about repeating checklists? Perfect.
Yeah, so I can create this and have it ever go every quarter. I could create these to the end of the year. I can do them after, there's different things here. I can create the title, and then you'll see here it'll show you what it's going to look like when it's actually being displayed. And then when I do the create button, it's going to create the whole series of projects and put them into plan.
Can you do it based on when it's marked complete? Because I saw that in Asana, and I thought that was so clever that it won't create the next one until I complete the current one.
Yeah, so what happens is a couple of things. One is we don't have it right now where it starts. You change the checklist to be working off the end date. They work off the starting date. So that's the progression. We are adding in so you can go the reverse way. Mm-hmm. What happens here is when you're working on a project, and if you finish one and it's currently in progress, you move it to completed, the next one in the series will automatically promote itself to in progress.
Great.
Does that make sense?
Yep, that's brilliant.
So that way you don't have to do those extra clicks. It's just smart enough to know what to do.
Well, and the other thing that worries me is end up if you forget to or just don't mark one complete, you get this backlog of the repeated tasks that just kind of fill up the queue, even though most of them have actually been complete. Then you just got to go click, 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 and complete them. But
that's exactly right. Yep.
Hey guys, I saw a question in the chat, and I had the same one, which is that can you set checklists to be repeating?
Can you set checklists? Well, no. So what happens is you set the project to repeating, and the checklist itself is living with that project. So the idea here is that projects will start and stop. So if you're doing, let's say, monthly payroll for, let's say I'm doing for Fred Smith, and it's not Fred, but it's a company, and it's monthly payroll. There is going to be this project called monthly payroll for March. There'll be another project called monthly payroll for April, and so forth. And each one of them will have the checklist that you'll be ticking through to complete that discrete project for that given month. The reason for doing that is you're able to move all the communications and lock it within the thread of the project. We will go and see how that views for Fred overall, because there's a different view for that. But we don't do it where the checklist itself is going to be replicating itself within the given project. You can create many checklists within a given project, so you could create that behavior where I could keep copying this to itself, but it kind of gets away from the concept of starting and stopping projects. You've now created one project that goes through infinite time.
Well, the way a lot of us think of this kind of stuff, Ian, I think, and I'm wondering if this is maybe you're saying it, that this is how it works, but I know that when I think of a bookkeeping engagement, let's say, and each month I have all their bank accounts and all their credit card accounts that need to get reconciled. So are you saying that each bank reconciliation would become its own project, or couldn't I have the client be the project and then within that, maybe through a checklist, say that each month this list of accounts needs to get reconciled?
Yeah, you can do it either way. So typically, we see it being done where the project is just for that particular month, and there's 12 projects for that given client for the year, right? But you can go in here and create this checklist and say this is March reconciliation, and then have another one here which is going to be April, May, June. It's just what's going to happen now is you're going to create a timeline that's really, 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 really long.
Which is, that's going to get annoying. But okay, so what about this? I think I'm getting the picture, and I'm sorry to get so granular, but I think it helps us get the picture of how to look at this in the big picture. So maybe what I would do is I would have the project, I'd have the client, right? The client would be XYZ company. And then the projects for that client might be January work, February work, March work, and so on. And that way, within each month, I could say, let's reconcile these accounts. January, we got to get 1099s done. This way, I can be specific about the one-off things that happen just in that month or just in the end of a quarter, those kinds of things. So each month would become its own project for that client in a sense.
Yeah, and again, I haven't shown you the other 50% of the product. So again, that's you're getting only a myopic view right here. But yeah, so what would happen typically is this might be, let's call this monthly services. And in this monthly services for Fred, I would have reconciliation, I'd have payroll, I would have advisory, whatever it might be, and those checklists would live here. They could be one big checklist, or they could be independent ones. And that's what I'm going to do for this monthly services would be, let's say it's for March.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And then I'd have another one said monthly services for April.
Right.
Now, where this comes together, so you guys just hold on tight, and I'll show you how it comes together from a perspective of Fred overall.
Okay.
Just to close out what work looks like in the details tab, this is where you get a description, its status, and then any document that's ever gone back and forth between Fred and I is automatically placed within the project, pulled from what's gone on in email. If you need to, you can upload anything you want. Just as an aside, yes, this is documents that we're holding on in Karbon. We don't want to be doing that long term. We are integrating with Dropbox, Box, and Google Drive currently, and so it should be out in the short to near term.
Got it. Oh, and Kathy also asked, what about task dependencies? Can you create dependencies for tasks?
Right now, they're set as being independent. We do the nested behavior within the checklist so that you can create the visualization of the actual series. We are on our next version of checklists that come out, which is planned to be out in the next 90 days to have dependencies being enabled.
Got it.
But not right now, I could go here, I could check this off. Whoops. I have to check off the top one, but I can check off the second in the list before I can check off the first one if I wanted to. I can't, however, check off a underlying one here unless I've done it in series. The last bit here is people. Inside of Karbon, we believe that only, any given checklist item, a to-do, or a project, there can only be one person assigned. They can change. The reason for that is we believe similar to like Asana, where if you have multiple owners, nothing gets done. So one owner ensures that somebody's feet are to the fire to make it happen. These other people, though, are involved. So Anthony and Pax are my coworkers, and they're working with me, so they can follow the project and get informed. And then Fred, so we're doing the work with. If I go out of the office, I can quickly assign this to a coworker, write them a note, and they will take over every checklist item, ownership of the project all in one go. So that way they can see all the documents, they can take over everything that needs to happen. Now,
hey Ian, just a suggestion down there where it says Fred Smith. It would be great if it said client there, and then if we had Joe Blow, attorney, something like an other third party.
Right.
Like who's the client? Who's the I don't know. We deal with bankers. We deal with our clients' attorneys.
Assistants.
So something that describes their role in the project.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's where our tagging hasn't come out yet, and the tagging would actually be reflected across the application in terms of the relationship that might have it. But we've heard the same request from a bunch of folks. The designers were trying to go for too clean of a look, and so that's where they just tried to specify who was internal and external. And I totally agree with you. So it's something that they're looking at changing. Last thing, okay, so let's keep moving forward. You guys are great because you guys are totally sidelining me. It's great. You can see me actually just going.
Are you sweating?
Not sweating just yet because I'm actually in my sunroom, which is improperly named because it's more of a refrigerator room. So I can't really do anything but freeze. So what I'm doing here is I'm in this project, right? I actually want to look at Fred himself. So I'm going to float over to Fred's contact record and all the detail around it. So it changes the view of everything.
All right, so let's sideline you again real quick because now that we're talking about Fred. So Fred is an outside consultant or an outside party, or he's the client, right? If I include him in here, does Fred get invited into Karbon such that he can log in and see what's going on here?
Nope. Karbon is only for you. Karbon is built just for the accounting professional. It is
I can't
completely
assign
locked
something
area.
to Fred. I can't say, hey, Fred, you need to do this for us. So what if I need something from Fred? What if I need a document? I just send him an email?
Nope. So you go here. You just send an email right here, for instance. We are working on a request system where you can go out and create some sort of questionnaire or a pass-through for documents and so forth. It's just not out yet. But right now what you're doing is you're using email. The key here, and this is one of the things with Karbon and a lot of the research that we did is internally you want to stop doing anything on email. So whether you use Karbon or something else, it's fine. but don't have internal communications on email. It just separates you from where the work's being done. However, from a client perspective, they're going to do one of the three things when they interact with you. They're either going to call you, they're going to text you, or they're going to email you. And generally, they're going to email you because it's the easiest, most ubiquitous thing you can do. If you can train a customer to use a client portal, God bless you, but it's really hard because they forget what the URL is, the username and password. It becomes pretty onerous. And so we use the email as the same conduit to go back and forth. The difference is those subject lines, and when you're driving an email from a record or from a project, it automatically has context inside of Karbon. So when it comes back, it's automatically going to be filed for the project and the customer for you.
That makes sense. So in a sense, if by emailing him from within Karbon and requesting the document, when he replies with it, it's here, which is brilliant.
Yep.
So what do we have against Fred, by the way? It says F. Fred Smith.
That's just, yeah. If he had an image, in Gravatar,
I'm kidding.
or on the email client, it would be there.
That's just 7 shades of wrong.
All right. You're killing me here.
I probably shouldn't ask this, but if I asked Fred for 3 things and he only sent back 1,
that would actually be that would be good. The problem right now is you ask Fred, or Fred emails you, and he does his diatribe of 16 problems that he has across 6 different projects. What happens when I go into triage? So I'll fly over to triage. When you go into this point here where I load everything up, and this, let's say this is from Fred, and I add this to work. Currently, what we are building that's not out just yet is the ability to separate and multiple times be able to associate to a given project.
So it's like a split transaction in terms of correspondence. You can split it off. I like that.
Important.
But meanwhile, it apparently gives you back the 1. You reply and say, Fred, where are the other 2?
That's exactly right. And so generally what you would do here is you would add it to the piece of work. And then if I want to make my life easier on the return, I would go back into Fred for whatever given project it was. Let's say it was his monthly services. I would raise an email from here because now I'm going to have the context of whatever it is. So you can see here, it doesn't ask me for what work item it is because it's automatically associated to this project. So when he emails me back, it's automatically going to file that email here.
If he emails me back on the wrong one, can I move it?
Yep, you can move anything you want. So again, if I went back into, let's go to an email that's here. Oops, that's a note. Let's get an email. So here's, again, it's in here with Fred and so forth. I can go back into, up to here. I can move this, and I can move it to a different piece of work. I actually only have 1 project for Fred. The other thing you can do here is if you go into triage, if I'm in triage and I go into this point and I'm filing this one and I add this one for Frederick, so we don't actually have anything for Frederick, but let's say I just put it for Fred, which was a mistake. You can see how it associates. We don't automatically clear this for you. It's because of the fact that you may need to actually change that particular, sorry, I clicked on it. I shouldn't have done that. I can change here what project it's for. So
Would it be helpful if we got in the habit of typing, say, the client's initials or something before monthly services so we can see where we are?
Yeah, that sounds smart.
Because monthly services March, I could have 50 of those.
Right.
Yeah. So I just did that quickly on the fly. When we get folks into Karbon, we help train them on what it is you want to name your projects to make it really fast and easy so you can see anything at a glance. But you're right. What happens is I had one person who I just loaded up. It was last week, and they wanted monthly services for the 30 clients they had. And when you go to the work view, you now see a sea of it. And it's really hard to discern what's for which person.
A lot of project management systems do that. So, but we through the years we've come up with initials for a client so we can
So
put those in the beginning of any task really.
Hey, Ian, back on the emails, am I able to only see the interchanges between me and the client, or can I see my staff?
So do you see here, it shows these 2 people? This email is currently being shared. And so we have a sense of private and public, and we're expanding that as we speak. But what happens is if I add Frederick in as a contact into Karbon, then that information is now visible across the folks in the firm. If I don't add him as a contact, any email that comes in here that doesn't have a contact associated to it is private. Nobody can see it. And it's not being locked or stored in any location. It's just inside of my triage. And so when I actually go to create a contact, you're automatically associating that to be viewable to everyone. We've had a lot of requests about, oh, I want to keep one email conversation private and the rest public, or I want to be able to pull out an email from a client that I want to always keep private, but I want that particular information to be viewed generally. And so in the month of, it's going to be either towards the end of April or the beginning of May, those additional permissions of private and public will be expanded to allow for those other use cases.
And tell your engineers to make it really obvious, like color code.
Yeah. This is not as obvious as I would like. Again, it's all about trying to create a clean UI. But again, I have to sit there and squint and go, is that the right one? So yeah.
Yeah, it's very scary to correspond and be very careful about who can see what.
Yep. The other one that comes up a lot. Sorry, go ahead, Steph.
No, I was just going to say we're coming up on almost a little more than 10 minutes left, so I want to have you move forward. I want to get to see the whole thing.
So let's go back to here. So again, I was back at Fred Smith, everybody. Actually, I'm going to change. So this is the Fred Smith record. Again, here is the timeline of everything. If I go to the details, this is where I have every version or every representation of Fred. So we have this concept of contact cards. When you add somebody in, we will strip out as much as we can from their signature and pre-populate this, as well as go out and find their social information for you and automatically create it here. I can go ahead and actually, there's much more information I can do here to show you. But the reason why we do this is I can create any number of contact cards here. The reason for that is so I can create the different representations of my client if they're an individual, a small business, or again, maybe part of a nonprofit. And this is what separates in Karbon the different projects and the different views of it so that you don't have someone who's doing tax work, getting the information muddled up with someone who's doing the small business servicing monthly. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
The other thing here is you can add all the details of their background here, their relationships, the systems you use, the tax details of them. And so each one of these has its own depth of information underneath that you can track the relationship overall. So again, this is for an individual. So again, I could put who's doing their tax, their accountant, some notes around them, any of the systems that are here. Again, relationships from a tax perspective. Now, if I go back to Fred, the other thing I can do is I can see in the work area every project that's in motion for Fred. So Fred's not the best example. I think Abigail has a bunch more projects. So if I go to Abigail, I can see all the projects that we have in motion. So this is to your point, Seth. Mm-hmm. Yes, I can create a project for every month, and I'll see all the projects that we have in process for Abigail, and then I could see them all, where they are in their planned and in progress state. If I was to bundle that into one, it would just look at one big project, and I wouldn't be able to differentiate it. So going to this other views allow you to see that. Now I can quickly float over to another project. Let's say it's a tax return that I'm not working on, but my coworker Anthony is, and while they're on the phone, I can take the note, inform Anthony, and then go back to the project that I was working on. Does that make sense?
What about pivoting on this a little bit? What if I want to see all the projects I have, and then maybe within that, who's working on it?
Yep, so we'll go back to that here. So that's where you go back to the work. I can see all the work that's in the firm. Now, if I go into that, I can go into, let's say, any of these buckets, and I can now see it by any of my coworkers, right? Mm-hmm. Or I could also see it by the client.
Perfect.
See that? So that's how you do the pivot. You're doing the pivoting at the work view. Mm-hmm. Cool? The last thing to look at here is, or it's not the last thing, there's multiple things, but if I go to Abigail, Abigail works at this company called Adam Smith Consulting. So I can now go from the contact up to the organization that we support. And again, now I have a timeline of all the communications with the organization. Now, the organization has all these employees that we interact with here working at this company. I can then assign a colleague. I've got the office details. It looks similar to the other contact card sort of concept. It's got a nice little map up top. And then I have the accounting details. Now I can connect this to QuickBooks Online. Zero is underway, but I can go ahead and connect this to your GL to the actual record here. And what that's going to do is populate all the background information that sits with the client. So these accounting details now are the full relationship I have with my client. I can track all the different underlying details of the firm itself. I can do the tax details of when we're doing taxes and what locations and whatnot. One of my funnest one here is the systems. I can go ahead and add the systems here. track the URL. We are releasing quickly the ability to click from here directly to the system that you support them with. Use a system like 1Password or whatnot to store the actual username password credentials. You have ownership, and then again, you've also got your officer details here. So again, this is how you're able to get that, I would say, lightweight CRM, or really a contact management in detail around the relationship with the clients. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Now, going here, all this work that we're doing here is being granular, is being chunked up into checklists and to ultimately to-dos. So this, to your point before, Seth, this is where we struggle with a lot of other places and systems, which is a lot of this is being driven through email. A lot of this has been driven on checklists, but your task and to-do system is separated from your work management system, your workflow, and your CRM. So this brings that all together. This is not released, guys. This is currently being released hopefully next week. But this is allowing me to see what is flowing through my firm. So you can see I created here a bunch of checklists just a bit ago, and the checklist items are now being located here, as well as some of the emails. If you guys remember that account files, I had created this particular account files to do from the email at the start of this whole conversation. And now I've got the actual information from the email that I placed here, knowing that I have to actually do something with it. And again, I have different, remember, if you guys remember, I created a checklist. These are the checklists that I created. I had given them a to-do this week to be done. And again, this is all the information, so I can quickly go through, and now I can see what I've got to be working on today or whatnot. So let's say, for instance, I don't want to do this. I can just drag it, drop it to the next time frame.
Oh, that's awesome.
I can say, well, you know what, screw that. I don't even want to work on that. And so again, I can move, I can reprioritize.
I like drag and drop.
Yeah. Yep. So everything here, you can reprioritize what order you want to be doing things with. So this becomes your checklist or tick list of how you're going to manage your day, but it sits within a context of what you do as a company overall and the checklist that actually get work done for the firm.
And can you click the drop down where it's at the top where it says My To Do, the very top? So I assume I can from there look at other people's to-dos.
Can you say all employees?
There is an all. I don't know why in the staging it's not showing it, but yes, there is a way to be able to see it collect across the whole organization.
You could check one employee.
Yeah, there is. It is in the design. Again, this is, you guys are looking at an engineering build, and so they haven't exposed that bit yet for whatever reason.
Does it track like work? Like if I have the work is 1099s and I have 30 clients that I'm doing 1099s, and underneath that's all the checklist steps of a 1099. Can I step back and see where my clients are, who's done, who isn't?
No. So what you can do is you would have inside of work, you would have here these different statuses of what's in motion, what's been waiting, what's planned, and what's completed. Okay. We've been asked to expand this in two ways. One is to allow for custom status types. So a lot of people want to have reviewed, like a reviewed state. So that way, again, as the work is done, you put a review. The next area that we will go down later this year is to create a sort of Kanban view or Trello-like view where you basically have all of your work that's listed here, and you have the different stages across here, and you can see them flowing from left to right collectively, and then break it down by the person that may be doing the work. So you can then get that sort of overarching map, if you know what I mean.
And the tagging feature that you're going to add will probably help with that.
Yep. So tagging allows you, it's flexible in the fact that you can then do like priority types, like high, low, medium. And then you can use the filters here to filter all the information by the tag. But you could also use them as adjectives or identifiers in order to create sub-views. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. I have a question.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, most of us have CRMs and time trackers and project management. What is your unique selling proposition that would get people that are already using programs to switch to Karbon?
So yes and no. So a lot of folks we see don't have a lot of those bits. When you look at different ones that overlap, so practice management. So some folks using office tools. So when we work with office tools, there's some really large projects that sit in there, and we say keep those large projects outside of Karbon because Karbon's more fluid, and your smaller projects and your more ad hoc stuff is done here. Because we don't do time tracking, we are looking to integrate to that. It's not something we want to build. The only thing we would want to do is to be able to track milestones, and in that be able to give you capacity understanding, not necessarily a stop and start a watch. Where we do overlap is with like a base camp. So again, this goes back to the task management. If you're using a heavy CRM solution, Generally, you're going to keep it there, but you can start to understand that your CRM solution is separated generally from your email, which is where most of your activity happens. And so we've had a lot of folks who were using their CRM separately, but then decided to move it all into Karbon and use Karbon as their lightweight CRM if they didn't need to have that depth. So there is a bit of crossover that happens in some of these areas, but in a lot of times people find it easier to operate in here because in a collective, collaborative environment, it's so much simpler to do work in this sort of realm. Slack is a good example. I wouldn't say that we're competitive with Slack. Slack is generally a lot of quick communications, and it's got presence, so you can know if somebody's on or off. Karbon's really for where work is done and the meat of any argument or anything that's transpiring with work that's being done. And so a lot of times we're working on a Slack integration that should come out relatively in the medium term, and that's to be able to get notifications of things in Slack within Karbon and actually to be able to move big conversations across. But actually I think Karbon and Slack work really well together because we use this internally, both Karbon and we also use Slack.
I have another question.
Yep.
I noticed on your website you're marketing it to accountants. Is that a big enough niche market, or are you thinking of maybe doing service firms like lawyers and architects?
Right now, if you look at how we've done with the relationship management, and if you look at where we're expanding the product to, we are geared purely for the accounting professionals and this particular profession. The reason is once you do legal, you have to take in a lot more understanding of documents and signatures, and there's a different set of rules. In other industries, again, what happens is we won't be able to provide the best support. We won't be able to build a product working extremely well with the workflows that this industry has to have. And so for right now, actually, we're not taking any legal lawyers into the product. We're only taking those who are accounting professionals.
Where do the documents live? I'm sorry.
The documents are living with, again, if I go to any particular piece of work, let's say here. So it still lives within your email client, so if it was Gmail or whatnot, but again, we had created a project for Fred Smith here. If you go into the details, all the documents are automatically cataloged and stored here in chronological order for any given project.
Okay, so they ride with the project. Okay.
That's right. So they're always sitting within the context of how you would understand the document to live. So that's going to be at a project level. It will also be pretty soon at the contact level.
And that's coming. Okay.
Yep.
Ian, the Twitter for Karbon is Karbon HQ.
That's Karbon HQ. Yep, at Karbon HQ. And if you go to our website, it's karbonhq.com. You'll notice our website is very sparse, as on purpose. We actually are making sure that people who are coming on are indeed accounting professionals. We also want to make sure that we can set up Karbon, so we do all the onboarding for free, but we want to make sure that you're using a system that has all your information in it, so we provide that. There was a question on price. Our price currently right now is $50 per user per month, paid up front annually. When we actually go into a general release, which is happening here in the next month or so, it'll actually go up to $75 per user per month. And that's because, again, we're doing all of the onboarding, and also because of the way that of how the tool is going to actually, in order to, when it works within the firm, we're seeing about an 8-hour increase in productivity. So you're getting 8 hours back a month. So you do the math on what that is in terms of the time savings and what you'd spend on an hourly basis, it more than pays for itself.
Ian, I had one last question. Do you have templates, like if you send if you're requesting information from a client, you're sending the same message every month? Do you?
No, we don't have it today. Work templates and email templates are on the list, but frankly, they're at the medium term level, so I have no idea when they're going to come out because they actually haven't hit our design queue just yet. So the only things I'll quote in terms of product and what we're building is within a 3-month time frame. In my past, at the past 2 companies I was at, we'd be on the road with a bunch of vendors, and they would always tell us about what features were coming, and 2 years later, I'd still wait for the feature to come. We're not going to play that game, so whatever I'm talking about that I'm saying is coming, it would be in a 3-month window. So that, for instance, I don't know. It's outside the 3-month time frame.
Okay. Anybody else have any other questions?
This is the fire hose of Karbon. You guys and now what you can, hopefully you guys can see why triage is so critical and so important, because it feeds all the projects that are moving and all the to-dos that are ultimately powering the whole firm. Again, for a multi-person firm, now you're able to see how everything's transitioning across everybody's inbox.
Yep.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, you want to stop
Thank you.
screen share so you can say goodbye?
Yeah, hold on a second. Let me, where is it at?
At the bottom somewhere.
No, it's over here. It's on my other screen where I moved Seth. I'm going to move you back, Seth. Now you're
That's
back
right.
friends.
I know. You've made me hit my head on the wall. So, Ian, thank you so much. This was great. And I love I hope you enjoyed the rapid fire questions. I think it makes it fun because this is the kind of stuff we wonder, as we're looking at a product. And this way we get the answers to our specific questions. I think that's really helpful for the audience, at least. I hope it was helpful for you, Ian.
I love this stuff.
And Alexa's asking, are there any plans for integrating with Mac Mail?
No. Right now, it's just Gmail, Office 365, and Exchange.
Okay. Gotcha. Very good. Well, Ian, if anybody has any more questions, how do they get in touch with you?
Ian@karbonhq.com. You can just email me. Heck, you can call me. It's 517-6267, the area code 510.
There we go. What kind of bike do you have back there? Now we're getting
So
to the
that is
important questions.
That right there is my training bike. I have another one. So I do half Ironmans. So this is when, the meeting's getting a bit long. I'll just jump onto the bike and take the meeting from there.
Nice.
But I have another bike, which is my racing bike, which is probably worth more than my car.
So Zoom has a mobile app. You could probably mount your mobile phone on the bike's handles and just do a meeting while you're biking.
Yeah, well, I've got this huge monitor, so I can just see it from right there.
Oh, that's a stationary bike?
Yeah, that's a trainer.
It's got a trainer on it.
Oh, nice, nice. I like it.
It's funny because I keep trying to catch up or get ahead of the competition. I just keep staying in the same spot.
I hate when that happens. You feel like a hamster in the wheel?
Yeah, pretty much. My wife gets a kick out of it. She just comes by and yells, "Go faster."
Hurry up. You're not getting anywhere. All right. Well, Ian, thanks so much for being with us. This has been great. And I hope everybody else, real quick, chime in. What do you think? Do you love it? You can all unmute and actually say something.
Yeah, it was good
It's on
stuff.
the list.
All right. So I guess
anxious to see how fast you can get new features added.
Yep. And how long does it take to onboard? If I call you after we hang up, Ian, and I say, Ian, get me in, how long does it take? Am I up within a day?
If I can get your information coalesced together, which is more where the time takes, it takes about a week for us to bring somebody on.
Okay. And you said it's a year up front, paid up front per user, but what if I add a user later on? I assume you just prorate it and add them in and charge me? Or?
Yep. So when you bring a user on, let's say you added a part-time person, they work 2 months and they drop off, then you get that all back as a credit. So you can flex up and down however you want. If you come on right now, your pricing is locked for perpetuity. So that's one of the reasons for the $50 a month. So if you go and add a person a year from now and we're at $75 a month, you're only paying $50. So we're in a situation before we do general release. You also get the ability to influence our product direction, which is what we're bringing on. Some history, some little background. We've got about 60 accountancies that have been running on the platform. We've got about 1,000 people that want to come on. We've gated it just to make sure that we can do everything right with support and experience. Our first paid customer came on in October. You asked about features. We're adding features really fast. We're a 30-person staff with 3 offices, one in San Francisco, one in Sydney, one in Melbourne. Most of that's engineering. There's only a few dead weight people like myself on the team. But we're able to turn around extremely fast. We spent the first 6 months building infrastructure and everything else. So actually our turnaround on adding is really good, is really quick. It's just the big meaty features, they sit within a pipeline queue. So
gotcha. Well, I have a new user here that I'd like to bring on.
That's fine. Bring it on.
What if somebody decides to cancel? What's the cancellation policy? If I sign on and I'm 6 months in and I'm like, you know what, this just isn't working for me, do we get a refund or how does that work?
You get your money back, and then when you come on, it's a 2-week trial. So you're not committed until after you're running it. You kick the tires and you say, you know what, this actually works for me. So there's no commitment until you're satisfied. We're not going to run a business like that. If
Right.
we held your money, we held your data, any of that sort of stuff, we're not going to be around.
Right. And
It's just bad business.
So there's no scaling. Like it's just straight up a flat monthly price per user. Even if I have 50 users, it's still going to be the same. Okay.
That's right.
Very
That's
good.
per user.
Per user.
Per user.
Yeah, so it's $50 per month per user now, and then it's going to be $75 if you don't act in the next 10 minutes.
Right. Unlimited clients.
Yeah, it's unlimited clients. We do everything just based on the people in the firm.
The
so
users.
again,
Right.
yeah, it's not on transactions or storage, none of that stuff. It's just super straightforward, simple. It's an
Do
email
you have any
attached
like
to-
single user clients, like where they're really just kind of managing it themselves, or is it really more for a collaborative environment?
Yeah, to give you some background, we built this to be designed for a 3 to 25 person firm. We were very surprised by the fact that the number of single person firms that were interested and came on board. And that's because even in that context, the inbox is separated from the work, but you can springboard from Karbon from any client to work on the systems that you're going to process with them. And so the organization combined with the visibility and the ability to see how everything's flowing on every project was really powerful. And again, that was a bit of a surprise to us.
Gotcha. Okay, I don't want to hold people hostage here. We're almost 10 minutes past our time. Ian, thank you so much for joining us today. Look forward to having you back soon when you have some more features to demonstrate for us.
Appreciate it, guys.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
See ya.
See ya.